The Adventures of the Little Woman, Her Dog, and the Peddler by Anonymous. Read for LibriVox.org by Calvin Cruz. There was a little woman, as I have heard tell. She went to market her eggs for to sell. She went to market all on a market day, and she fell asleep on the king's highway. By came a peddler, his name it was Stout, and he cut her petticoats all round about. He cut her petticoats up to her knees, which made the little woman began for to freeze. When this little woman began to awake, she began to shiver and she began to shake. She began to shake and she began to cry, "Goodness mercy on me, sure this is not I. But if this be I, as I hope it be, I have a little dog at home and he will know me. And if this be I, he will wag his tail, but if it's not I, he will bark and wail." When this little woman came home in the dark, up starts the little dog and began for to bark. He began to bark and she began to cry, "Goodness mercy on me, 'tis surely not I." The dog ceased to bark, the woman then did cry, "Goodness mercy on me, now I know this is I." End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Anvil by Lawrence Binion. Read for LibriVox.org by Jeffrey. Burned from the ore's rejected dross, the iron whitens in the heat. With plangent strokes of pain and loss, the hammers on the iron beat. Searched by the fire, through death and dole, we feel the iron in our soul. O dreadful forge, if torn and bruised, the heart, more urgent comes our cry. Not be spared but to be used, brain, sinew, and spirit, before we die. Beat out the iron, edge it keen, and shape us to the end we mean. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Autumn Wind by Wu Ti. Read for LibriVox.org by M. Lee. Autumn wind rises, white clouds fly, grass and trees wither, geese go south, orchids all in bloom, chrysanthemums smell sweet. I think of my lovely lady I never can forget. Floating pagoda boat crosses Fen River. Across the midstream white waves rise. Flute and drum keep time to sound of the rower's song. Amidst revel and feasting, sad thoughts come. Youth's years, how few, age, how sure. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Black Panther by John Hull Wheelock. Read for LibriVox.org by Larry Wilson. There is a panther caged within my breast, but what his name there is no breast shall know save mine, nor what it is that drives him so, backward and forward in relentless quest. That silent rage, baffled but unsuppressed, the soft pad of those stealthy feet that go over my body's prison to and fro, trying the walls forever without rest. All day I feed him with my living heart, but when the night puts forth her dreams and stars, the inexorable frenzy reawakes. His wrath is hurled upon the trembling bars, the eternal passion stretches me apart, and I lie silent, but my body shakes. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Broken Numbers by Jeanette Fraser Henshaw. Read for LibriVox.org by Andrew Gauntz. A mystery puzzled and vexed me, unsolvable, strange, and deep. Perplexed and worn out in spirit, it followed me into my sleep. Then with eyes that were heavy with dreaming I drifted from darkness to dawn. for the raindrops scattered my shadows with numbers of broken song. I thought of the heavy mystery that troubled me yesterday. It seemed I never could solve it or drive it completely away. And I thought of the thousands of moments when each to oneself stands alone, thrown back on oneself for the answer that never comes home. As I pondered each sad broken number the raindrops made on the pane, the shine came to me, came in bundles, for I heard the song in the rain. Shine is a guest we have often. Grief being seldom is great. I have no quarrel with mystery. I have no quarrel with fate. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Broken Veteran of Commercial Wars by Max Ehrman, 1872 to 1945. Read for LibriVox.org. Broken Veteran of Commercial Wars. After the smoke and roaring and desolation of the battle of middle life, after long marches and counter-marches, privation, dreary, godless skies, and speechless weariness, after changes and the death of the beloved and all who knew you in your youth, will you, broken veteran of commercial wars, turn again to the green fields of your youth? And though the spoils of war be yours, once more, with the simplicity of childhood, will you plant love in your heart, grow gentle, and walk again with God over the olden hills and by the still flowing waters, and be pleased once more to be innocent in your desires, and to grow sweetly tender in your heart? You broken veteran of commercial wars? End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Days of Melancholy by Jamie Harris Coleman. Read for LibriVox.org by M. Lee. O days of melancholy, thou art so sad and drear. The crickets singing, summer has gone, and winter days are near. O days of melancholy, when the leaves begin to die, all nature looks so lonely, we cannot help but sigh. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Donkey by G. K. Chesterton. Read for LibriVox.org by Rachel May. When fishes flew, and forests walked, and figs grew upon thorn, some moment when the moon was blood, then surely I was born. With monstrous head and sickening cry, and ears like errant wings, the devil's walking parody on all four-footed things. The tattered outlaw of the earth, of ancient crooked will, starve, scourge, deride me, I am dumb, I keep my secret still. Fools! For I also had my hour, one far fierce hour and sweet. There was a shout about my ears and palms before my feet. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Dustman by Frederick Edward Weatherly. Read for LibriVox.org by Ike Sher. When the toys are growing weary, and the twilight gathers in, when the nursery still echoes with the children's merry din, then unseen, unheard, unnoticed, comes an old man up the stair, lightly to the children passes, lays his hand upon their hair. Softly smiles the good old dustman. In their eyes the dust he throws, till the little heads are falling, and the weary eyes must close. Then the dustman very gently takes each little dimpled hand, leads them through the sweet green shadows far away in slumberland. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Fakenham Ghost by Robert Bloomfield. Read for LibriVox.org by Colleen McMahon. Footnote. This ballad is founded on a fact. The circumstance occurred perhaps long before I was born, but is still related by my mother and some of the oldest inhabitants in that part of the country. R.B. End of footnote. The Fakenham Ghost, a Ballad. The lawns were dry in Euston Park. Here truth inspires my tale. The lonely footpath, still and dark, led over hill and dale. Benighted was an ancient dame, and fearful haste she made to gain the vale of Fakenham and hail its willow shade. Her footsteps knew no idle stops, but followed faster still, and echoed to the darksome copse that whispered on the hill, where clamorous rooks, yet scarcely hushed, bespoke a peopled shade, and many a wing the foliage brushed, and hovering circuits made. The dappled herd of grazing deer that sought the shades by day, now started from her path with fear, and gave the stranger way. Darker it grew, and darker fears came o'er her troubled mind, when now a short, quick step she hears, come padding close behind. She turned, it stopped. Naught could she see upon the gloomy plain, but as she strove the sprite to flee, she heard the same again. Now terror seized her quaking frame, for where the path was bare, the trotting ghost kept on the same. She muttered many a prayer. Yet once again amidst her fright, she tried what sight could do, when through the cheating glooms of night a monster stood in view. Regardless of whate'er she felt, it followed down the plain. She owned her sins, and down she knelt, and said her prayers again. Then on she sped, and hope grew strong, the white park gate in view, which, pushing hard, so long it swung, that ghost and all passed through. Loud fell the gate against the post, her heartstrings like to crack, for much she feared the grisly ghost would leap upon her back. Still on, pat pat, the goblin went, as it had done before. Her strength and resolution spent, she fainted at the door. Out came her husband much surprised, out came her daughter dear, good-natured souls all unadvised of what they had to fear. The candle's gleam pierced through the night some short space o'er the green, and there the little trotting sprite distinctly might be seen. An ass's foal had lost its dam within the spacious park, and, simple as the playful lamb, had followed in the dark. No goblin he, no imp of sin, no crimes had ever known. They took the shaggy stranger in, and reared him as their own. His little hoofs would rattle round upon the cottage floor. The matron learned to love the sound that frightened her before. A favorite the ghost became, and 'twas his fate to thrive, and long he lived, and spread his fame, and kept the joke alive. For many a laugh went through the vale, and some conviction tod. Each thought some other goblin perhaps was just as true. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Farewell is on my tongue by Paulus Silentarius. Translated by William Roger Patton. Read for LibriVox.org by Winston Tharp. Farewell is on my tongue, but I hold in the word with a wrench, and still abide near thee. For I shudder at this horrid parting, as at the bitter night of hell. Indeed, thy light is like the daylight, but that is mute, while thou bringest me that talk sweeter than the sirens, on which all my soul's hopes hang. End of poem This recording is in the public domain.
The Fire of Driftwood by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Read for LibriVox.org by Zach Hoyt. We sat within the farmhouse old, whose windows, looking o'er the bay, gave to the sea breeze damp and cold an easy entrance, night and day. Not far away we saw the port, the strange, old-fashioned, silent town, the lighthouse, the dismantled fort, the wooden houses, quaint and brown. We sat and talked until the night descending filled the little room. Our faces faded from the sight, our voices only broke the gloom. We spake of many a vanished scene, of what we once had thought and said, of what had been and might have been, and who was changed, and who was dead, and all that fills the hearts of friends when first they feel, with secret pain, their lives thenceforth have separate ends, and never can be one again. The first slight swerving of the heart that words are powerless to express, and leave it still unsaid in part, or say it in too great excess. The very tones in which we spake had something strange, I could but mark. The leaves of memory seemed to make a mournful rustling in the dark. Oft died the words upon our lips, as suddenly from out the fire built the wreck of stranded ships, the flames would leap and then expire. And as their splendor flashed and failed, we thought of wrecks upon the main, of ships dismasted that were hailed and sent no answer back again. The windows rattling in their frames, the ocean roaring up the beach, the gusty blast, the bickering flames, all mingled vaguely in our speech, until they made themselves a part of fancies floating through the brain, the long-lost ventures of the heart that send no answers back again. O flames that glowed, O hearts that yearned, they were indeed too much akin, the driftwood fire without that burned, the thoughts that burned and glowed within. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Good Night by Richard Legalin. Read for LibriVox.org by Elise D. Midnight, and through the blind the moonlight stealing on silver feet across the sleeping room. Ah, moonlight, what is this thou art revealing? Her breast, a great sweet lily in the gloom. It is their bed, white little isle of bliss, in the dark wilderness of midnight sea. Hush, 'tis their hearts still beating from the kiss, the warm dark kiss that only night may see. Their cheeks still burn, they close and nestle yet, ere with faint breath they falter out good night. Her hand is in his upon the coverlet, lies in the silver pathway of the light. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Grave by Siegfried August Mollmann. Translated by James Clarence Mangan. Read for LibriVox.org by Newgate Novelist. Blessed are the dormant in death. They repose from bondage and torment, from passions and woes, from the yoke of the world and the snares of the traitor. The grave is the true liberator. Griefs chase one another around the earth's dome. In the arms of the mother alone is our home. Woo pleasure, ye triflers, the thoughtful are wiser. The grave is their one tranquilizer. Is the good man unfriended on life's ocean path, where storms have expended their turbulent wrath? Are his labours requited by slander and rancour? The grave is his sure bower anchor. To gaze on the faces of lost ones anew, to lock in embraces the loved and the true, were a rapture to make even paradise brighter. The grave is the great reuniter. Crown the corpse then with laurels, the conqueror's wreath. Make joyous with carols the chamber of death, and welcome the victor with cymbal and psalter. The grave is the only exalter. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The House Inside by Max Ehrmann, 1872 to 1945. Read for LibriVox.org. The House Inside. I wander again inside myself. Door after door I open, pass through, and close again slowly, noiselessly. The outer world I leave behind. I hear no more the noise of the street, and I see no more the sights of daily life. As I pass from chamber to chamber in the house of my soul, everything becomes more and more quiet. Now I pause a moment in the still room which is not far removed from the inner chamber of the quick of me. All passion, all desire, all possession are stripped from me. The world of the senses is gone, and a light not of the world but of the inner world guides my steps. Color and shapes are gone. Something like music, but not music, I hear, and yet hear not. Something like feeling, but neither of pleasure nor pain, presses gently against me at the heart of myself. The next chamber, and the next, and I stand face to face with the flame, the spirit, the God. It seems to me it must be a chamber of mother of pearl, with living iris hues, and a flame of saffron, a still flame of saffron. I tremble, for the house has grown strange to me, and I feel I shall lose my way. I have passed the chambers of human speech, and can therefore explain no more save in symbols. I search for symbols. It seems like a light, a still, warm light with a face in it, the face of the human soul, the face of the faint and changeless smile, noiseless, eternal, gentle, oh, very gentle. This I say, though I have not yet passed the last door. I have lost my way. Fear overtakes me. I can remember nothing. It seems that I am sinking. A piercing chill runs through my body. I tremble and shriek inwardly. I retrace my steps, groping in the dark, urging my will as with an iron spear. I hurry out, away, back to the chamber of memory and imagination, back to the world of speech, then out of doors to the world of sight and sound and color. I lacked the full measure of courage, yet I remember that I stood in the antechamber of my soul. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
How Is It? By Ella Wheeler Wilcox, read for LibriVox.org by Elise D. You who are loudly crying out for peace, you who are wanting love to vanquish hate, how is it in the four walls of your home, the while you wait? Do those who form your household welcome your approach in the morning as the earth welcomes the presence of dawn, or do they dread your coming, lest you censure and complain? Do you begin the day with praise to God for each blessing you possess, and do you speak frequent words of commendation to those about you? Do those you claim to love often hear you talking in love's language, or is your softest tone and your sweetest speech saved for the sometime guest, while the harsh voice and the sharp retort are used with those you love the best? You who are praying for the Christ's return and for the coming of the promised day, how is it in the four walls of your home, the while you pray? Are you trying to make your home a reflection of what you believe heaven will be? Unless you are, you will never find heaven anywhere. The foundations of our heavenly mansions must first be built on earth. Unless you are striving to put in some use of the angelic virtues here and now, no angelhood will be accorded to you hereafter. Unless you are illustrating your desire for peace by a peaceful, love-ruled home, you have no right to clamor for a cessation of hostilities among nations. Nations are only chains of individuals. When each individual expresses nothing but love and peace in his daily life, there will be no more war. You who are loudly crying out for peace, you who are wanting love to vanquish hate, how is it in the four walls of your home, the while you wait? End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
I Hear America Singing by Walt Whitman, read for LibriVox.org by Sophie Boyd. I hear America singing, the varied carols I hear, those of mechanics, each one singing his as it would be blithe and strong. The carpenter singing his as he measures his plank or beam, the mason singing his as he makes ready for work or leaves off work, the boatman singing what belongs to him in his boat, the deckhand singing on the steamboat deck, the shoemaker singing as he sits on his bench, the hatter singing as he stands, the woodcutter's song, the plowboy's on his way in the morning, or at noon intermission, or at sundown, the delicious singing of the mother, or of the young wife at work, or of the girl sewing or washing, each singing what belongs to him or her and to none else. The day what belongs to the day, at night the party of young fellows, robust, friendly, singing with open mouths their strong melodious songs. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
I wake and feel the fell of dark, not day, by Gerard Manley Hopkins, read for LibriVox.org by Newgate Novelist. I wake and feel the fell of dark, not day. What hours, oh, what black hours we have spent this night! What sights you, heart, saw, ways you went, and more must in yet longer lights delay. With witness I speak this, but where I say hours, I mean years, mean life, and my lament is cries countless, cries like dead letters sent to dearest him that lives, alas, away. I am gall, I am heartburn, God's most deep decree bitter would have me taste. My taste was me, bones built in me, flesh filled, blood brimmed the curse. Self-yeast of spirit a dull dough sours. I see the lost are like this, and their scourge to be as I am mine, their sweating selves, but worse. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Let Pass by Max Ehrman, 1872 to 1945. Read for LibriVox.org. Let pass. Let pass, dear heart, let pass this pain, this brief distress that grieves thee so. These unkind words, and doubtful glancing eyes, in which till now had shone but kindly looks. I say, let pass the talk of talkers all. Not one still star of all the night knows aught of their ill words, nor does the growing green in stilly woods, where plays the summer sun, nor shall the days that come to thee anon, nor shall the gentle rain of summers nigh, nor olden paths that sweetly greet thy feet. Thy soul's deep purposes they do not know, or knowing, still they could not understand. Keep thou yet on the way thou lovest best, for none of all the world knows it as thou, and all the precious facts that are thy life. Therefore this brief distress that grieves thee so, let pass, dear heart, let pass. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Life on the Farm in Amusing Rhyme by Anonymous. Read for LibriVox.org by Calvin Cruz. Life on the farm. The cock is crowing, the cows are lowing, the ducks are quacking, Jane's tongue is clacking. The geese are gabbling, the brook is babbling. Oh dear me, what a noise. The bees are all humming, little George is drumming. Moll water is splashing, old Joe is thrashing. Little Joe is yelling, Jim a tree is felling. Was there ever such a noise? Tom his scythe is whetting, old Suzette is fretting. The pigs they are squeaking, the barn door is creaking. Old Peter is talking, the parrot is mocking. Who can endure such a noise? The dull ass is braying, the black horse is neighing. The baby is squalling, the nurse she is bawling. The horn it is sounding, the hammer is pounding. The sheep are baa-baaing, and the boys ha-haing. Mercy on us, what a noise! Robin Redbreast is singing, the dinner bell's ringing. The swallows are twittering, the girls they are tittering. The old cat is mewing, the cook she is chewing. The watchdog is howling, old Towser is growling. I'm most crazy with the noise. The grindstone is turning, and Nabby is churning. Goody Dobson is preaching, the peacock is screeching. I cannot live in such a noise. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Love the Light Giver by Michelangelo Buonarroti. Translated by John Addington Symonds. Read for LibriVox.org by Winston Tharp. With your fair eyes, a charming light I see, for which my own blind eyes would peer in vain. Stayed by your feet, the burden I sustain, which my lame feet find all too strong for me. Wingless upon your pinions forth I fly, heavenward your spirit stirreth me to strain. E'en as you will, I blush and blanch again, freeze in the sun, burn 'neath a frosty sky. Your will includes and is the lord of mine. Life to my thoughts within your heart is given. My words begin to breathe upon your breath. Like to the moon am I, that cannot shine alone. For lo, our eyes see naught in heaven, save what the living sun illumeth. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Love's Counterfeit by James E. Pickering. Read for LibriVox.org by Andrew Gauntz. Old is mankind, yet with immortal youth, unyielding, ardent, sinuous, and bold, alluring ever in the guise of truth. Where is the fire that warmed me yesterday? And where the flame that will tomorrow blaze to leave me shivering by its ashes gray? The wind that sweetly sings in ocean caves, then dallies with the wallflowers on the tower, may fan assassins and sweep over graves. What pleasure has a kiss that fever brings, or one grown cold with satisfied desire? The love that on the senses fiercely plays comes like a wind and passes like a fire. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Merry Wind by Mary Mapes Dodge. Read for LibriVox.org by M. Lee. The merry wind came racing adown the hills one day, in gleeful frolic chasing the rustling leaves away. In clouds of red and yellow he whirled the leaves along, and then the jolly fellow, he sang a cheery song. The merry wind was weary at last of fun and play. His voice grew faint and eerie, and softly died away. Far off a crow was calling, and in the mellow sun the painted leaves kept falling and fading one by one. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Metempsychosis by Sophie Jewett, read for LibriVox.org by Newgate Novelist. I watch thy face, sweetheart, with half belief in olden tales of the soul's wayfaring. I marvel from what past thy young eyes bring their heritage of long entailed grief. I watch thy face, and soft as through a dream I see not thee, but some fair fated Greek, whose carven lips grow flesh straightway and speak stern words and sad, with perfect curves that seem but as the cynic sweetness of thy smile, set quivering over tears in self-despite. Again I watch by mystic taper light, where a pale saint doth kneel a weary while. I hear the murmured passion of her prayer, imploring heaven for boon of sacrifice. I read behind the rapture of her eyes a look which thou didst teach me unaware. The visions pass. The light, but now so faint, flames red and sudden over field and brook. Thy face is turned, full fronting me with look worn never yet of cynic nor of saint. And now amid fierce northern battle glare, where wounded heroes wait the gods' decree, the Valkyr rides, and o'er her brow I see the floating golden glory of thy hair. Sweet spirit, pilgrim through the cycled years, dear though thou art, I may not bid thee stay. I bless thee whatsoever chartless way thou goest, God impelled. I have no fears. I know thou wilt surrender not to pain. Thou wilt look never forth from coward eyes. Thou wouldst not barter truth for paradise. Thou couldst not think that ease and peace were gain. Far off, I know, the darkness shall be light for him who scorneth to make terms with fate. Far off for thee, beloved, there must wait the answered question and the finished fight. 1891. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Pleasant Ship by Unknown. Read for LibriVox.org by Ike Scher. I saw a ship a-sailing on the sea, and oh, it was all laden with pretty things for thee. There were comfits in the cabin, and apples in the hold. The sails were made of silk, and the masts were made of gold. The 24 sailors that stood between the decks were 24 white mice, with chains around their necks. The captain was a duck, with a packet on his back, and when the ship began to move, the captain said, "Quack, quack." End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Prodigal by Aubrey Thomas de Vere. Read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. The Prodigal. I live. My days not yet are spent. Grace may at last to me be given, when least I hope it, to repent on earth, and pass from earth to heaven. But they, my friends of earlier years, they traverse other seas and lands. My heart alone their footsteps hears. I grasp no more their answering hands. From me one grave reproof, yet kind, had wrought perchance their endless rest, for men by such strange links are joined, that oft the worst can aid the best. The bark my rashness overset was filled with many men. The day descends. Upon the margin yet I sit and murmur, where are they? End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Richard and Kate, or Fair Day, a Suffolk Ballad, by Robert Bloomfield. Read for LibriVox.org by Colleen McMahon. Come, goody, stop your humdrum wheel. Sweep up your orts and get your hat. Old joys revived once more I feel. 'Tis fair day, aye, and more than that. The deliberation. Have you forgot, Kate, prithee say, how many seasons here we've tarried? 'Tis 40 years this very day, since you and I, old girl, were married. Look out, the sun shines warm and bright, the stiles are low, the paths all dry. I know you cut your corns last night. Come, be as free from care as I. For I'm resolved once more to see that place where we so often met. Though few have had more cares than we, we've none just now to make us fret. Kate scorned to damp the generous flame that warmed her aged partner's breast. Yet, ere determination came, she thus some trifling doubts expressed. Difficulties, consent. Night will come on, when seated snug, and you've perhaps begun some tale. Can you then leave your dear stone mug, leave all the folks and all the ale? Ay, Kate, I will, because I know, though time has been we both could run, such days are gone and over now. I only mean to see the fun. She straight slipped off the wall and band, and laid aside her lucks and twitches, and to the hutch she reached her hand, and gave him out his Sunday breeches. His mattock he behind the door, and hedging gloves again replaced, and looked across the yellow moor, and urged his tottering spouse to haste. The walk to the fair. The day was up, the air serene, the firmament without a cloud. The bee hummed o'er the level green, where knots of trembling cowslips bowed. And Richard thus, with heart elate, as past things rushed across his mind, over his shoulder talked to Kate, who, snug tucked up, walked slow behind. When once a giggling mother you, and I a red-faced chubby boy, sly tricks you played me not a few, for mischief was your greatest joy. Once, passing by this very tree, a gotch pitcher of milk I'd been to fill, you shouldered me, then laughed to see me and my gotch spin down the hill. Discourse on past days. 'Tis true, she said, but here, behold, and marvel at the course of time. Though you and I are both grown old, this tree is only in its prime. Well, goody, don't stand preaching now. Folks don't preach sermons at a fair. We've reared 10 boys and girls, you know, and I'll be bound they'll all be there. Now friendly nods and smiles had they, from many a kind, fair-going face, and many a pinch Kate gave away, while Richard kept his usual pace. At length arrived amidst the throng, grandchildren, bawling, hemmed them round, and dragged them by the skirts along where gingerbread bestrewed the ground. The arrival, country sports. And soon the aged couple spied their lusty sons and daughters dear, when Richard thus exulting cried, "Didn't I tell you they'd be here?" The cordial greetings of the soul were visible in every face, affection void of all control, governed with a resistless grace. 'Twas good to see the honest strife, which should contribute most to please, and hear the long recounted life of infant tricks and happy days. But now, as at some nobler places, amongst the leaders 'twas decreed, time to begin the dickey races, more famed for laughter than for speed. Recollections. Richard looked on with wondrous glee, and praised the lad who chanced to win. Kate, wasn't I such a one as he? As like him I as pin to pin. Full 50 years are passed away since I rode this same ground about. Lord, I was lively as the day, I won the high-lows out and out. I'm surely growing young again, I feel myself so kedge and plump. From head to foot I've not one pain, nay, hang me if I couldn't jump. Thus spoke the ale in Richard's pate, a very little made him mellow. But still he loved his faithful Kate, who whispered thus, my good fellow. The departure. Remember what you promised me, and see, the sun is getting low. The children want an hour, you see, to talk a bit before we go. Like youthful lover most complying, he turned and chucked her by the chin, then all across the green grass hieing, right merry faces all akin. Their farewell court beneath a tree that drooped its branches from above, awaked the pure felicity that waits upon parental love. Kate viewed her blooming daughters round, and sons who shook her withered hand. Her features spoke what joy she found, but utterance had made a stand. An old man's joy. The children toppled on the green, and bowled their fairings down the hill. Richard with pride beheld the scene, nor could he for his life sit still. A father's unchecked feelings gave a tenderness to all he said. My boys, how proud am I to have my name thus round the country spread. Through all my days I've labored hard, and could of pains and crosses tell. But this is labor's great reward, to meet ye thus and see ye well. My good old partner, when at home, sometimes with wishes mingles tears. Goody, says I, let what will come, we've nothing for them but our prayers. Old man's joy continued. May you be all as old as I, and see you, sons to manhood grow, and many a time before you die, be just as pleased as I am now. Then, raising still his mug and voice, an old man's weakness don't despise. I love you well, my girls and boys, God bless you all, so said his eyes. For as he spoke, a big round drop fell bounding on his ample sleeve, a witness which he could not stop, a witness which all hearts believe. Thus filial piety wert there, and round the ring benignly bright dwelt in the luscious half-shed tear, and in the parting word good night, the return home. With thankful hearts and strengthened love, the poor old pair, supremely blessed, saw the sun sink behind the grove, and gained once more their lowly rest. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Ruth by Thomas Buchanan Reed. Read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. Ruth. Suggested by a statue executed by Mr. Rogers in Florence. From age to age, from clime to clime, a spirit, bright as her own morn, she walks the golden fields of time, as erst amid the yellow corn. A form, o'er which the hallowed veil of years bequeaths a lovelier light, as when the mists of morning sail round some far isle to make it bright. And as some reaper mid the grain, or binder resting o'er a sheaf, beheld her on the orient plain, a passing vision bright and brief, and while he gazed, let fall perchance the sheaf or sickle from his hand, thus even here, as in a trance, before her kneeling form I stand. But not as then she comes and goes, to live in memory alone, the perfect soul before me glows, immortal in the living stone. And while upon her face I gaze, and scan her rarely rounded form, the glory of her native days comes floating over me soft and warm. Comes floating, till this shadowy place brightens to noontide, and receives the breath of that old harvest space, with all its sunshine and its sheaves. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Sonnet 43 by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. Read for LibriVox.org by Rachel May. How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach when feeling out of sight for the ends of being an ideal grace. I love thee to the level of every day's most quiet need by sun and candlelight. I love thee freely, as men strive for right. I love thee purely, as they turn from praise. I love thee with the passion put to use in my old griefs and with my childhood's faith. I love thee with a love I seem to lose with my lost saints. I love thee with the breath, smiles, tears of all my life. And, if God choose, I shall but love thee better after death. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Subalterns by Thomas Hardy. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. Poor wanderer, said the leaden sky, I fain would lighten thee, but there be laws in force on high which say it must not be. I would not freeze thee, shorn one, cried the North, knew I but how to warm my breath, to slack my stride, but I am ruled as thou. Tomorrow I attack thee, white, said sickness, yet I swear I bear thy little ark no spite, but am bid to enter there. Come hither, son, I heard death say. I did not will a grave should end thy pilgrimage today, but I too am a slave. We smiled upon each other then, and life to me wore less that fell contour it wore ere when they owned their passiveness. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Sun Has Long Been Set by William Wordsworth. Read for LibriVox.org by Sophie Boyd. The sun has long been set, the stars are out by twos and threes. The little birds are piping yet among the bushes and trees. There's a cuckoo and one or two thrushes, and a far-off wind that rushes, and a sound of water that gushes, and the cuckoo's sovereign cry fills all the hollow of the sky. Who would go parading in London and masquerading on such a night of June, with that beautiful soft half moon and all these innocent blisses on such a night as this is? End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Then and Now by Thomas Hardy. Read for LibriVox.org by Kai Koshi. When battles were fought with a chivalrous sense of should and ought, in spirit men said, "End, we cook her dead. Honor is some reward. Let us fight fair, for our own best or worst. So, gentlemen of the guard, fire first." In the open they stood, man to man in his knightly hood. They would not deign to profit by a stain on the honorable rules, knowing that practised perfectly no man durst who in the heroic schools was nursed. But now, behold, what is war with those where honor is not? Rama laments is dead innocence. Herod howls, sly slaughter rules now. Let us, by modes once called accursed, overhead, under water, stab first. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Three Hills by Everard Owen. Read for LibriVox.org by Kai Kochi. There is a hill in England, green fields and a school I know, where the balls fly fast in summer and the whispering elm trees grow. A little hill, a dear hill, and the playing fields below. There is a hill in Flanders, heaped with 1,000 slain, where the shells fly night and noontide, and the ghosts that died in vain. A little hill, a hard hill, to the souls that died in pain. There's a hill in Jewry, 3 crosses pierce the sky. On the midmost he is dying, to save all those who die. A little hill, a kind hill, to souls in jeopardy. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
2 by Alexander Smith. Read for LibriVox.org by Andrew Gauntz. The broken moon lay in the autumn sky, and I lay at thy feet. You bent above me. In the silence I could hear my wild heart beat. I spoke, my soul was full of trembling fears at what my words would bring. You raised your face. Your eyes were full of tears as the sweet eyes of spring. You kissed me then. I worshipped at thy feet upon the shadowy sod. Oh, fool, I loved thee, lovely cheat, better than fame or God. My soul leaped up beneath thy timid kiss. What then to me were groans, or pain, or death? Earth was a round of bliss, I seemed to walk on thrones. And you were with me 'mong the rushing wheels, mid trade's tumultuous jars, and where to awestruck wilds the night reveals her hollow gulfs of stars. Before your window, as before a shrine, I've knelt 'mong dew-soaked flowers, while distant music bells with voices fine measured the midnight hours. There came a fearful moment. I was pale, you wept and never spoke, but clung around me as the woodbine frail clings pleading round an oak. Upon my wrong I steadied up my soul and flung thee from myself. I spurned thy love as 'twere a rich man's dole. It was my only wealth. I spurned thee. I who loved thee could have died that hoped to call thee wife, and bear thee gently smiling at my side through all the shocks of life. Too late thy fatal beauty and thy tears, thy vows, thy passionate breath. I'll meet thee not in life, nor in the spheres made visible by death. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
To a Dead Crow by Kasi Prasad Ghosh. Read for LibriVox.org by Anamika. Gay minstrel of the Indian clime, how oft at morning's rosy prime, when thou didst sing in caw-caw numbers, vexed I've awoke from my sweet slumbers, and to avoid that hateful sound that plagues a head, howe'er profound, have walked out in my garden where, beside the tank, in many a square, sweet lilies, jasmines, roses bloom, far from those trees within whose gloom, of foliage thick, thou hadst thy nest, from daily toil at night to rest. Now lifeless on the earth, cold, bare, devoid alike of joy and care, the offals of my meal no more attract thee as they did before. There's rubbish scattered round thee, but thy heart is still, thine eyes are shut. No more that blunt yet useful beak from carcasses thy food can seek, or catch the young unheeded mouse, which from the flooring of my house, urged by its hapless luck, would stray, and bask beneath the solar ray. Gay minstrel, ne'er had death before its dart destructive sharpened more, to pierce a gayer mortal heart than thine, which, hath felt the smart. Though life no more is warm in thee, yet thou dost look as though it may be that life in thee is full and warm, not cruel death could mar thy form. Thy features, one and all, possess still their former ugliness. They are in truth the very same the Indian crow hath, known to fame. Oh, may when death hath closed these eyes, and freed from earthly bondage, flies the spirit to eternity, stretched at full length I lie like thee, on Mother Earth's cold lap, so ne'er to spin such verses out I'll dare, and please the public ear again with such discordant silly strain, as thou didst once delight to pour at morn or noon or evening hour. In sooth, I promise this shall be my last line in addressing thee. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
To a Gypsy Child by the Seashore by Matthew Arnold. Read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. To a Gypsy Child by the Seashore. Douglas, Isle of Man. Who taught this pleading to unpractised eyes? Who hid such import in an infant's gloom? Who lent thee, child, this meditative guise? What clouds thy forehead, and foredates thy doom? Lo! sails that gleam a moment, and are gone. The swinging waters and the clustered pier, not idly earth and ocean labour on, nor idly do these sea birds hover near. But thou, whom superfluity of joy wafts not from thine own thoughts, nor longings vain, nor weariness the full fed souls annoy, remaining in thy hunger and thy pain, thou, drugging pain by patience, have a verse from thine own mother's breast that knows not thee. With eyes that sought thine eyes thou didst converse, and that soul-searching vision fell on me. Glooms that go deep as thine I have not known, moods of fantastic sadness nothing worth. Thy sorrow and thy calmness are thine own, glooms that enhance and glorify this earth. What mood wears like complexion to thy woe? His, who in mountain glens at noon of day sits rapt and hears the battle break below? Ah, thine was not the shelter, but the fray. What exiles changing bitter thoughts with glad? What seraphs in some alien planet born? No exile's dream was ever half so sad, nor any angel's sorrow so forlorn. Is the calm thine of stoic souls, who weigh life well and find it wanting nor deplore, but in disdainful silence turn away, stand mute, self-centered, stern, and dream no more? Or do I wait to hear some gray-haired king unravel all his many-colored lore, whose mind hath known all arts of governing, mused much, loved life a little, loathed it more? Down the pale cheek long lines of shadow slope, which years and curious thought and suffering give. Thou hast foreknown the vanity of hope, foreseen thy harvest, yet proceedest to live. O meek anticipant of that sure pain, whose sureness gray-haired scholars hardly learn, what wonder shall time breed to swell thy strain? What heavens, what earth, what suns shalt thou discern? Ere the long night, whose stillness brooks no star, match that funereal aspect with her pall, I think thou wilt have fathomed life too far, have known too much, or else forgotten all. The guide of our dark steps a triple veil betwixt our senses and our sorrow keeps, hath sown with cloudless passages the tale of grief, and eased us with 1,000 sleeps. Ah! not the nectarous poppy lovers use, not daily labour's dull Lethean spring, oblivion in lost angels can infuse of the soiled glory and the trailing wing. And though thou glean what strenuous gleaners may in the thronged fields where winning comes by strife, and though the just sun gild, as all men pray, some reaches of thy storm-vexed stream of life, though that blank sunshine blind thee, though the cloud that severed the world's march and thine is gone, though ease dulls grace and wisdom be too proud to have a lodging that was all her own, once, ere the day decline, thou shalt discern, O once, ere night in thy success thy chain, ere the long evening close, thou shalt return, and wear this majesty of grief again. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
To Critics by Walter Learned. Read for LibriVox.org by Ike Scher. When I was 17, I heard from each censorious tongue, I'd not do that if I were you. You see, you're rather young. Now that I number 40 years, I'm quite as often told of this or that I shouldn't do because I'm quite too old. Oh, carping world, if there's an age where youth and manhood keep an equal poise, alas, I must have passed it in my sleep. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
To Life by Thomas Hardy. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. O life, with the sad seared face, I weary of seeing thee, and thy draggled cloak, and thy hobbling pace, and thy too forced pleasantry. I know what thou wouldst tell of death, time, destiny. I have known it long, and know too well what it all means for me. But canst thou not array thyself in rare disguise, and feign like truth for one mad day that earth is paradise? I'll tune me to the mood, and mum with thee till eve, and maybe what as interlude I feign, I shall believe. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
200 Years After by Siegfried Sassoon. Read for LibriVox.org by Craig Franklin. Trudging by Corby Ridge one winter's night, unless old hearsay memories tricked his sight, along the pallid edge of the quiet sky he watched a nosing lorry grinding on, and straggling files of men. When these were gone, a double limber and 6 mules went by, hauling the rations up through ruts and mud to trench lines digged 200 years ago. Then darkness hit them with a rainy scud, and soon he saw the village lights below. But when he told his tale, an old man said that he'd seen soldiers pass along that hill. Poor silent things, they were the English dead, who came to fight in France and got their fill. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Tyre by Handley Mole. Read for LibriVox.org by In the Desert. Deep flows the silent tide of heat and light, poured from the western heaven, all glows aloft, and all beneath, from the white cliffs remote of Lebanon and wreaths of gleaming cloud, to where you low peninsula, wave-worn, shields in a narrow port the fisher's sail, late wafted to its solitary rest. The while along the beach bestrewn with flutes of shivered columns, hoary wreck of gates and temples fallen, a dripping shroud of nets and cordage steams beneath the sea. Is this the crowning city of the seas, the mart of kings and nations famed of old? Beyond the utmost shores, beyond the isles of sunset and of dawn, are these the towers whence first magician commerce threw her spell, her lines and circles to embrace a world, and charm from each recess of hills and waves their secret treasures to enrich her throne? Is this the grave of Tyre? Proud was thy birth, lost city from primeval Sidon drawn, before recorded years, and prouder still, thy progeny descended when from thee the impassioned princess o'er the Cyprian main conveyed the Carthaginian fates afar, whence Barca sprung, and Hasdrubal, and he, whose arm almost uprooted from the earth the strength of Rome now equal in their fall, the cities lie, the parent with the child. Far otherwise of old thy port was seen, rich eldest queen of ocean, from the deep, an island citadel with massy walls, and long-drawn quays encircled, answering rows to endless ranks of marts and palaces, along the neighbouring strand, between, around. A floating world of galleys far and wide darkened the main, some anchored motionless, some with a cloud of swelling sails aloft, and sound of oars just parting on their way, and some, a fleet from far discoveries come, slow to an anchor riding, hailed the while, with loud acclaim from battlements and stairs, a fleet returned from where beyond the gates, the pillared gates of evening, flows the stream of blue Atlantis, crossed by many a zone, torrid or arctic, on the towering stern, long-lost explorer of a world unknown, the admiral, reclined beneath a veil of crimson canopies, in thought recalls his new-found secrets of the western main. Islands of green Elysium, glittering streams, from undiscovered wells o'er sands of gold, poured on the ocean, skies of purple glow, high kindling where the noon no shadow flings, and nightly constellations a new sphere with planetary lustre shining mild o'er earth's last promontory, whence the air bore from 100 cliffs the lion's peal. Then how his pilots northward by the mark, high and still higher in the twinkling pole, had led the fleet far heaving on the plunge of Gallic tides or British, by the walls of granite hills and isles, a realm of mines, and upward still to where the midnight heaven shone with a pearly lustre soft diffused, the sun scarce couched beneath the glimmering brink of waters. Pondering thus the changeful scenes of distant enterprise, and rich with spoils inestimable of gainful knowledge won, the seaman steers to haven, soon to meet the senators, the prince, in audience high, expectant all in hope to extend their chain and clue of commerce through the widening maze of earth and ocean, so to gem the crown of Tyrian power with unexampled wealth, new splendour, and new pride. Meanwhile a fleet, far different, on a southward voyage bound, moves from the quay, a convoy of huge rafts, the limbs of mountain cedars on each deck, a bold vociferous crew that wield the oar and cumbrous rudder and expand the sail with prompt contrivance, so they shape their course to coast by leafy Carmel and the verge of roseate Sharon, thence to Joppa's pier, and landed there to climb the craggy walls of Palestine to Salem, to his shrine, who sheds unearthly radiance visible between the bending cherubs o'er the pure mirror all gold, his mercy throne serene. To him the royal Hebrew, prince and sage, now buds a sky-plant temple, and inlays his odorous chambers with the arts of Tyre, mingling the breath of Lebanonian woods with wafted incense. Thither floats with shouts the timbers hewn and shaped by Tyrian skill, high in the snow-topped mountains, which at dawn or shadowing eve re-echoed as the axe felled the huge umbrage of 1,000 years, soon without stroke or sound of steel inbuilt, to adorn the roofs and walls of Solomon. Southward the cedars float, and from the south the oriental galleon homeward sails, deep laden from the regions of the sun, ivory and gold and pearls and fiery gems, freighting the keel. Far off, beneath the cliffs of ancient Horeb in the coral bay, on the red shore, the Tyrian year by year anchored his Indian bark after long search, from spicy isle to isle, along the sides of Ternate and Tidor and Celebes, Ceylon and Malabar, remotest names, or where Golconda's virgin sands revealed their diamond treasures, or in crystal depths of Persian waters plunging for the pearl the diver toiled, or Afric's eastward hills, the hills of Ophir, from unfathomed mines, yielded their ruddy gold. Perhaps more wide the bold Phoenician in his endless quest, coasting or over star-reflecting seas, star-guided ever eastward, sailed beyond the golden Chersonese to great Cathay, and tracing thence the deep from rock to rock, anchored in havens of another world, and mined Peruvian ore. Precious the load, slow borne along the Arabian waves to meet the annual caravan whose files in turn conveyed the unladen riches o'er the sands and through Idume's gates with armoured guard to float on western waters. So the stores of the bright east were scattered over realms, Ionian or Etrurian, Tyre alone dispensed to each their treasures by the right of boundless enterprise and secret lore, of lonely paths through moon-heaved seas profound and labyrinths of isles. Oft and again the prince himself of the rich commonwealth ascended with his sages to the tower of observation in the public cause, to watch, to reckon through a cloudless air the hosts of evening in the westward march eternal, how the planetary five change their aspect, direct or retrograde, beaming in opposition or conjoined with solar light, or how the sudden shade of some eclipse on the full-orbed moon, as high she rode above the silent hills, fell at the hour predicted. Thus by search assiduous, marking thus the wheels of heaven, Phoenicia learnt to steer a surer path than sea-girt Hellas, who with careless aim sailed by Callisto's circle, reckoning wide. And what wonder that her children thus, in lack of heavenly truth contemplating the immortal fires on high, and winning still, by that mysterious aid, the wealth of worlds, should light their idol altars to such names, Baal the lord of day, and Ashtaroth, empress of eve. Great was thy wisdom, great thy splendour, city of kings. Thy temples old with nameless wonders shone, where through the dark the emerald pillars cast a gleaming ray. Thy merchants gathered to adorn their courts, and chambers and arcades, all precious things, the spoils of cave and forest, stream and breeze, all forms and colours. From thy battlements perfumes of Saba tempered the soft air, and every sweetest voice of stop or string shed music o'er thy waters. All was thine that skill and old experience could attain, and vast ambition with a constant hope, still toiling on one line. Not prouder shone, nor wealthier in her day, the later bride of oft-enamoured Ocean, the fair queen of Adria, when with ceremonial joy, year after year, her gorgeous Bucentaur, attended with the innumerable throng of oars and sails, a nation shouting round, rode seaward, and the Doge in purple state high on the deck threw glittering to the wave the spousal ring, the saint who read thy doom. In visions saw thee borne upon the tide of swelling fortune, an imperial ship, of costly timbers wrought, thy sides of fir, from Hermon's ridges every spiry mast, a cedar king from Lebanon, each oar an oak of Bashan, all thy benches shone. Far seen Numidian ivory, snow pure, thy pictured sails rolled heavy on the breeze, work of Egyptian looms, Aeolia dyed, thy canopies with hues of changeful flame. Thy helm was guided by the hoary skill of Arvad and of Sidon, the long deck, and bulwarks flashed with casques and burnished shields, a mercenary host, the dusky brood of Atlas and the Mauritian shore. All nations plied thy traffic, Tarshish poured her metals at thy feet, Armenia drove her battle steeds, a fiery cavalcade, to prance and curvet in thy glamorous fairs. The Indian archer came with ivory spoils from hunted elephants, the Syrian came with chests and casket, rubies, amethysts, agate and coral. Judah sent her sons, laden with golden grain from summer fields of Minnith and the balm of Gilead's hills. And Kedar's shepherd princes marshalled there their bleating hosts innumerable, far driven from Araby the blessed. Their Sheba came with gold and breathing spices, Haran there, and ancient Eden, and the industrious tribes that drink Euphrates came with tinkling bells, and camels bending low beneath a weight of folded broideries, merchandise for kings. All were thine, skill, vigour, dauntless hope, far scheming enterprise. The mariners of Tarshish sung thee in their chanted lays, oft in thy port, and oft by Tuscan shores, and Libyan, thee the city of the seas, impregnable, wave-walled, imperial Tyre. But not in heaven was heard her eulogy. Her name was silent there. No choral hymn celestial told of righteousness and truth wrought in her gates, or worship paid by her, the tribute of a nation's fear and love to him that made the nations and that drew their limits and o'erlooks their history still. Full often, who can doubt the blended voice of powers and hierarchs on the mount of light, whence mirrored in the blissful vision clear earth and her changeful scenes are all beheld? Full oft that sound accompanied with joy the acts of Tyre's blessed neighbour, Israel, their harps and voices tuned before the throne, a strain responsive to the timbrelled choir of Miriam, when the tribes by conquering faith escaped the Egyptian, or by faith o'ercame the aliens of the desert, or by faith ascending from the river's parted flood, 7 days in faith made circuit of the walls, till all in ruin fell, and soon again, valiant in fight at Gibeon, scattered far the fivefold host of Canaan, while the day was stayed in heaven by prayer. Each righteous act of firm obedience was renowned above. The stone of Ebenezer, Elah's veil, or scenes of sacred peace, the majesty of hoary David's close, or Solomon, yet virtuous with his people, or the reign of prayerful Hezekiah, the return after captivity of Ezra's train, or Nehemiah's, when in venturous faith a nation wrought together for their God his city and his temple. Sweet the hymns of heaven resounded, answering to the praise wafted from Judah's courts. Just is thy rule, thou King of nations, and to us how fair the sight of man's allegiance to thy throne. Rare prospect, rare as beautiful, to see thee loved in all and honoured, all things done in court and city and the fruitful field, as to thy praise, the labours of the hand, performed with grace and gladness as to thee, the song of conquering battle poured by those who strike for righteousness and thee alone, waiting thy sentence and the immortal mind, for powers immortal thou hast breathed in man, equal to ours in essence, and by us admired not seldom as beheld in souls that feel sin's inborn taint and burthening death. The immortal human mind, inflamed no more with self-dependent vanity, false hopes, false aims, but strengthened, sanctified, refined, by sweet humiliation at thy feet, conscious of thee the all-wise, and of thy will, all-holy, and still thinking as for thee. Then fair it is to gaze from heaven on man, howe'er imperfect all his works and oft broken by death, magnificent appears the march and progress of a righteous race, their search and enterprise in yonder world, thy making, pure and sacred every scheme of public good, as in thy presence drawn. Happy the eyes that watch thy handiwork in earth, sea, sky, and sweet the tongues that speak in oratory or poem to thy praise. Thy creatures and rejoicing to be known, thy creatures and acknowledging in all thy providential and redeeming love, beyond the fall prevailing. Happy man, thrice happy, walking in thy heavenward ways. Happy thy favoured nation, while they own thy laws and throng thy temple round the flame of thy prophetic altar. Blessed are they in going and returning, blessed in days of peace and blessed in battle, in the town and pasture, in their basket and their store, blessed by the hearth and in the grave still blessed. Who shall not worship thee, great Lord and source of being, who of all thy conscious works shall fail to exalt and sing that he is thine? As we indeed are thine, and in thy light, song without end, we praise thee and will praise. Centred in thee, our nature feels the spell of upward ceaseless motion, the pure growth of knowledge, power, and virtue infinite. As infinite art thou, but void of thee, the creature, vexed and wandering on herself, prays inward, and forever finds no rest. E'en thus in heaven, as faith can hear the sound, they harped and sung their praises in the view of holy generations seldom seen, but seen how great a sight, and angels care to trace our human annals as they roll. For written there they learned the sacred proof, how righteousness and peace, justice and grace, absolute grace and justice absolute, embraced at Calvary, how salvation strives with propagated sin. But not for thee, proud city of the waters, not for thee, heaven sung, thy wealth and wisdom and renown waked no rejoicing there, for all the toil of thy skilled mariners and all the lore of sages contemplating in thy towers were aimed and centred on thyself alone, thy gain and glory, not the Maker's praise. Though dwelling near the heavenly kindled light, the fires of solitary truth that burned upon Moriah's crown, though trafficking age after age with Israel and her kings, thy sapient spirit owned no homage due to Israel's one Jehovah, great I am, but chose thy Melkarth and the rule impure of gilded Ashtaroth. So when the scourge, by holiest justice wielded, fell at length on disobedient Zion, fell with strokes tremendous yet reluctant, thou the while, with calculating triumph, couldst begin the song of exultation, dreaming high of glittering gain redoubled in thy gates. Jerusalem is fallen in fire. For me the fierce Chaldean rends her wall, perish her name and turn her wealth to me. Vain triumph, self-destroying, for that cry was heard above, and long before the hour, prophetic voices by the whispering fount of Siloa, by Euphrates' willowy brink, or Egypt's flood, had sung the Tyrion's doom, inbreathed with dreadful prescience from the throne. Then first the Babylonian in his day poured round the forts his army like a sea, with mounting waves, and the elder citadel, the peopled shore, resisting but in vain, while years and added years went round the skies, was ruined and forever. Then the Greek in turn besieging pressed the island hold, with dreadful resolution thrusting far a mounded promontory month by month, through the deep channel in the frowning walls, till the lost city, now no more an isle, fell flaming and in slaughter. So there passed for ever all her old magnificence of regal commerce with 100 realms, with Occident and Orient, all her power of universal gain. A subject now, and tributary and base, and age by age still baser she declined, through many a storm of changeful fortune, till the Ottoman shook her last pride in hopeless ruin down, And now along the solitary shore her small peninsula, descried afar, gleams as a beacon on the wanderer's gaze, a melancholy light to fill the soul with solemn views of providential doom, prophetic to the nations that forsake, in pride of power and wisdom, the pure love and changeless laws of God. Here oft should muse, pacing in spirit full oft this wave-beat mound, the sons of England. O thrice honoured isle, my native isle, my own inspiring word, how shall these languid thoughts, this tardy pen, find a strong utterance for the secret thrill that moves me as thy child, that first I saw the sun and drank the breezes first in thee, near to the white walls of thy famous shore, and the blue leaping waves that lift thy fleets of ancient and of late renown, and thy still prouder commerce, fair and clear, are views which sometimes, when the spirits fail and life moves haltingly on the daily road, imagination brings. Some sudden gleam of azure skies and showers of cloudless light, some far extended plain or green recess of tropic mountains, or a sparkling strand. But fairer 'tis and more reviving far to watch in reverie some splendid scene of English story, memorable deeds on patriot battlefields or princely throngs, refulgent the rich pageantries of peace, or stately senates in renowned debate, kings, legislators, heroes, sons of fame, in every path of glory loved and crowned, by every muse full welcome the report flies from all hands of thy incessant march, in enterprise and science, how thy sons can lift the veil of nature, state her laws, explore with giant tube the starry gulf, or learn from silent cliffs or in the depths of sunless oceans legends of the dawn and earth's lost ages, or, with patient search, far travelling can reveal the fountain seas whence Nile is born, or cataracts unknown of western forests, or around the pole draw near and nearer the discovering lines, still asking for new paths of wealth and fame, new hopes and new success unsatisfied. But oh, beware, dear glorious land, nor slight the silent warning past. If sense of power from ever-growing science, if thy skill and multiplied experience in all arts of peace and grandeur, if thy wealth and fame, thy hopes and thy success betray thee on from the straight road of virtue and the law of him whose name is holy, and whose face has shone with clearest rays of all on thee, shouldst thou despise his oracles, and call darkness his light, and rear an idol fain to self, to man, then calculate no more a prosperous fate, nor trust thy circling waves, thy gallant mariners and all their craft, of tides and stars, the illimitable growth of thy broad cities and foundations old, of thy imperial commonwealth slow reared, but gaze awhile, and in the solemn light of revelation, on the eldest born, the ancestral foundress of thy wealthy line, and fear from him that changes not, nor waives his right, an end deserved, the doom of Tyre. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
In Wartime by Florence Earle Coates. Read for LibriVox.org by Jeffrey. Further and further we leave the scene of war and of England's care. I try to keep my mind serene, but my heart stays there. For a distant song of pain and wrong, my spirit doth deep confuse, and I sit all day on the deck, and long for news. I seem to see them in battle line, heroes with hearts of gold, but of their victory a sign the fates withhold. And the hours too tardy-footed pass, the voiceless hush grows dense. Mid the imaginings, alas, that feed suspent, oh might I lie on the wind, or fly in the wilful sea-bird's track? Would I hurry on with a homesick cry, or hasten back? End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Wasted Illness by Thomas Hardy. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. Through vaults of pain, enribbed and wrought with groins of ghastliness, I passed, and garish spectres moved my brain to dire distress, and hammerings, and quakes, and shoots, and stifling hotness, blent with webby waxing things, and waning things, as on I went. Where lies the end to this foul way? I asked with weakening breath. There on ahead I saw a door extend, the door to death. It loomed more clear. At last, I cried, the all-delivering door. And then, I knew not how, it grew less near than theretofore, and back slid I along the galleries by which I came, and tediously the day returned, and sky and life the same, and all was well. Old circumstance resumed its former show, and on my head the dews of comfort fell, as ere my woe. I roam anew, scarce conscious of my late distress, and yet those backward steps through pain I cannot view without regret. For that dire train of waxing shapes and waning passed before, and those grim aisles must be traversed again to reach that door. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Water Lady by Thomas Hood. Read for LibriVox.org by Smackaroni. Read on November 1st, 2020. Alas, the moon should ever beam, to show what man should never see. I saw a maiden on a stream, and fair was she. I stayed a while to see her throw her tresses back that all beset the fair horizon of her brow with clouds of jet. I stayed a while to view her cheek that wore in place of red the bloom of water tender blue, daintily spread. I stayed to watch, a little space, her parted lips if she would sing. The water closed above her face with many a ring. And still I stayed a little more, alas, she never comes again. I throw my flowers from the shore and watch in vain. I know my life will fade away, I know that I must vainly pine, for I am made of mortal clay, but she's divine. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Widow to Her Hourglass by Robert Bloomfield. Read for LibriVox.org by Colleen McMahon. Come, friend, I'll turn thee up again, companion of the lonely hour. Spring 30 times hath fed with rain, and clothed with leaves my humble bower, since thou hast stood in frame of wood, on chest or window by my side. At every birth still thou wert near, still spoke thine admonitions clear, and when my husband died, I've often watched thy streaming sand, and seen the growing mountain rise, and often found life's hopes to stand on props as weak in wisdom's eyes, its conic crown still sliding down, again heaped up, then down again. The sand above more hollow grew, like days and years still filtering through, and mingling joy and pain. While thus I spin and sometimes sing, for now and then my heart will glow. Thou measurest time's expanding wing, by thee the noontide hour I know. Though silent thou, still shalt thou flow, and jog along thy destined way. But when I glean the sultry fields, when earth her yellow harvest yields, thou get'st a holiday. Steady as truth on either end, thy daily task performing well. Thou art meditation's constant friend, and strikes the heart without a bell. Come, lovely May, thy lengthened day shall gild once more thy native plain. Curl inward here, sweet woodbine flower, companion of the lonely hour, I'll turn thee up again. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Willie's Question by George MacDonald. Read for LibriVox.org by Devorah Allen
and Larry Wilson.
Willie's Question. Willie speaks. Is it wrong, the wish to be great? For I do wish it so. I have asked already my sister Kate. She says she does not know. Yestereve at the gate I stood, watching the sun in the west. When I saw him look so grand and good, it swelled up in my breast. Next from the rising moon, it stole like a silver dart. In the night, when the wind began his tune, it woke with a sudden start. This morning a trumpet blast made all the cottage quake. It came so sudden and shook so fast, it blew me wide awake. It told me I must make haste, and some great glory win. For every day was running to waste, and at once I must begin. I want to be great and strong, I want to begin today. But if you think it very wrong, I will send the wish away.
The father answers. Wrong to wish to be great? No, Willie, it is not wrong. The child who stands at the high closed gate must wish to be tall and strong. If you do not wish to grow, I should be a sorry man. I should think my boy was dull and slow, nor worthy of his clan. You are bound to be great, my boy. Wish and get up and do. Were you content to be little, my joy would be little enough in you.
Papa, Papa, I'm so glad that what I wish is right. I will not lose a chance to be had. I'll begin this very night. I will work so hard at school, I will waste no time in play. At my fingers' ends I'll have every rule, for knowledge is power, they say. I would be a king and reign, but I can't be that, and so field marshal I'll be, I think, and gain sharp battles and sieges slow. I shall gallop and shout and call, waving my shining sword. Artillery, cavalry, infantry, all hear and obey my word. Or admiral I will be, wherever the salt wave runs, sailing, fighting over the sea, with flashing and roaring guns. I will make myself hardy and strong. I will never, never give in. I am so glad it is not wrong. At once I will begin.
Fighting and shining along, all for the show of the thing. Any puppet will mimic the grand and strong, if you pull the proper string.
But indeed I want to be great. I should despise mere show. The thing I want is the glory state, above the rest, you know.
The harder you run that race, the farther you tread that track. The greatness you fancy before your face is the farther behind your back. To be up in the heavens afar, miles above all the rest, would make a star not the greatest star, only the dreariest. That book on the highest shelf is not the greatest book. If you would be great, it must be in yourself, neither by place nor look. The highest is not high by being higher than others. To greatness you come not a step more nigh by getting above your brothers.
I meant the boys at school. I did not mean my brother. Somebody first, is there the rule? It must be me or another.
Oh, Willie, it's all the same. They are your brothers all. For when you say, Hallowed be thy name, whose father is it you call? Could you pray for such a rule to him? Do you think that he would hear? Must he favor one in a greedy whim, where all are his children dear? It is right to get up and do, but why outstrip the rest? Why should one of the many be one of the few? Why should you think to be best?
Then how am I to be great? I know no other way. It would be folly to sit and wait. I must up and do, you say.
I do not want you to wait, for few before they die have got so far as begin to be great, the lesson is so high. I will tell you the only plan, to climb and not to fall. He who would rise and be greater than he is, must be servant of all. Turn it each way in your mind, try every other plan. You may think yourself great, but at length you'll find you are not even a man. Climb to the top of the trees, climb to the top of the hill. Get up on the crown of the sky if you please, you'll be a small creature still. Be admiral, poet, or king, let praises fill both your ears. Your soul will be but a windmill thing, blown round by its hopes and fears.
Then put me in the way, for you, papa, are a man. What thing shall I do this very day? Only be sure I can. I want to know, I am willing, let me at least have a chance. Shall I give the monkey boy my shilling? I want to serve at once.
Give all your shillings you might, and hurt your brothers the more. He only can serve his fellows aright who goes in at the little door. We must do the thing we must before the thing we may. We are unfit for any trust till we can and do obey.
I will try more and more. I have nothing now to ask. Obedience, I know, is the little door. Now set me some hard task.
No, Willie. The Father of all, Teacher and Master high, has set your task beyond recall. Nothing can set it by.
What is it, Father dear, that he would have me do? I'd ask himself, but he's not near, and so I must ask you.
Me 'tis no use to ask. I, too, am one of his boys. But he tells each boy his own plain task. Listen, and hear his voice.
Father, I'm listening so, to hear him if I may. His voice must either be very low, or very far away.
It is neither hard to hear, nor hard to understand. It is very low, but very near, a still, small, strong command.
I do not hear it at all. I am only hearing you.
Think, is there nothing, great or small, you ought to go and do?
Let me think. I ought to feed my rabbits. I went away in such a hurry this morning, indeed, they've not had enough today.
That is his whisper low, that is his very word. You had only to stop and listen, and so very plainly you heard. That duty's the little door, you must open it and go in. There's nothing else to do before, there's nowhere else to begin.
But that's so easily done. It's such a trifling affair. So nearly over as soon as begun, for that he can hardly care.
You are turning from his call if you let that duty wait. You would not think any duty small if you yourself were great. The nearest is at life's core. With the first you all begin. What matter how little the little door, if it only let you in?
Papa, I am come again. It is now 3 months and more that I've tried to do the thing that was plain, and I feel as small as before.
Your honor comes too slow? How much then have you done? 1 foot on a mole-heap, would you crow as if you had reached the sun?
But I cannot help a doubt whether this way be the true. The more I do to work it out, the more there comes to do. And yet, were all done and past, I should feel just as small. For when I had tried to the very last, 'twas my duty after all. It is only much the same as not being liar a thief.
One who tried it found even with shame that of sinners he was the chief. My boy, I am glad indeed you have been finding the truth.
But where's the good? I shall never speed, be 1 whit greater in sooth. If duty itself must fail, and that be the only plan, how shall my scarce begun duty prevail to make me a mighty man?
Ah, Willie, what if it were quite another way to fall? What if the greatness itself lie there in knowing that you are small? In seeing the good so good that you feel poor, weak, and low, and hungrily long for it as for food, with an endless need to grow? The man who was lord of fate, born in an ox's stall, was great because he was much too great to care about greatness at all. Ever and only he sought the will of his Father good. Never of what was high he thought, but of what his Father would. You long to be great, you try. You feel yourself smaller still. In the name of God let ambition die. Let him make you what he will. Who does the truth is one with the living truth above. Be God's obedient little son. Let ambition die in love. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Winter Lull by D.H. Lawrence. Read for LibriVox.org by Winston Tharp. Because of the silent snow, we are all hushed into awe. No sound of guns, nor overhead no rushed vibration to draw our attention out of the void wherein we are crushed. A crow floats past on level wings, noiselessly. Uninterrupted silence swings invisibly, inaudibly, to and fro in our misgivings. We do not look at each other. We hide our daunted eyes. White earth and ruins, ourselves and nothing beside, it all belies our existence. We wait and are still denied. We are folded together, men and the snowy ground, into nullity. There is silence, only the silence, never a sound nor a verity to assist us, disastrously silence-bound. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.